friend of the king. I'm protected and I'm loved. I'm an heir, so on the seas. I've been forgiven, I have been free, I have been chosen, I've been redeemed. Okay, I'm one of the ones.
Holy nation.
One of the unashamed, I mean unashamed.
Yeah, we are one of them ones. We are not ashamed. Yeah, we are blessed. We are a holy nation. Niko hapa na Boni.
Yes, sir.
Boni, you are also one of them ones, eh?
I am one of them ones.
Boni, leo tu barabara zetu ziko very.
Zimefanya ile kitu. Ikabidi to grow the gift of patience.
Manze. Unakuja tu pole unafika tao unagundua hai pia huko hakujakaa vizuri.
Kuna sarakasi.
Kukai vizuri. I hope itasolve haraka kwa sababu manzo unajua kila mtu tawa anaenda kutafuta. Utakuta inaweza iko na possibility ya kubring a rift between hawkers na wasawamathri. Na hizo parties mbili wao hakuna mwenye amekosea mtu mwingine. I think governor hapa sasa
afanye kitu bana.
Mimi nilikuwa nasemaje? Unaona zile vitu zilikuwa zile stations zilikuwa zinaundwa, stages zilikuwa zinaundwa. Hiyo tu planning ingeendelea. Saa hizi tungekuwa tumefika by now tungekuwa tushazoea. Saa hizi ungekuaga na stress ya kupandia gari pale Ngara. Ungekuwa ulizoea.
Si ndio hiyo sasa.
Lakini sasa ukisema hivi na hakuna mahali na wapeleka inakuwa noma.
Quite unfortunate.
Otherwise Boni, karibu.
Asante sana.
Thank you for showing up. Nilikuwa nasema I totally understand if utaniambia imekuwa noma. Ninge understand. Hata nilikuwa nimesema
ni wewe na Yesu.
Ninge understand. Lakini juu umesema Kenya God nataka utuambie, utatuambia.
Nifikishe message.
We have 20 minutes. Mimi hata sitaongea kitu kingine. Tulikuwa na the art of the start.
Yes.
I think tulikuwa tuko na session ya 3 last week and pia last week vile pia tulikuwa tuna fast. Tulikuwa na program nyingine hapo, so tukasema acha tulete hii wiki. So Boni, ni nini imekuleta huku? Juu leo ulikuwa na all the reasons za
arrive. Lakini nikasema nifike.
We are live with Boni on Facebook and also on YouTube there. And Boniface Nyoike Nganga.
Ndio hiyo sasa.
Namwitaga Boni, unaweza ni senior age mate. Boni is my senior. So Mr.
We are brothers in Christ.
Sir Boniface, karibu.
Asante sana man Karis. And once again always very exciting to come and just share some things that can help. So tumekuwa tukiongea stories the art of the start. We started talking about decluttering, then we talked about discernment that other week, just the need to discern the season that you're in. And today I just want to give a last piece perhaps on the art of the start. And I want to give something a little bit controversial because many times watu hufanya goal setting, but I realized there's something better than goal setting. It's called growth setting. Instead of setting goals, set your growth. In other words, program how you will continually grow. Because you see, the thing about when you achieve your goal, sometimes watu stop. Sijui kama ushaona saa ingine watu wakicheza ball, wamescore goal ya first, ya pili, ya tatu, and then wakaona hii game ni yetu, and then they stopped because of the goal. But if the motivation is growth, then now even when you reach your goal, don't stop growing, you continue growing. And I discovered this when I was studying Life ya Christ, because Bible inasema this about Christ in Luke chapter 2 verse 52. Inasema, and Jesus grew. Jesus grew. If you want to start well, start with a growth mindset, not a goal mindset. Because goal ukifikia, then you have to set another goal. But growth is a continuous journey. And so I felt like this is one of those things that if people can learn, if people can begin to apply it in their lives, they will not only start well, but they will finish well. Because if you set your life in such a way that you never stop growing, your life will never stop going forward.
So Boni, if my goal this year is to buy a car, a German machine, put that in a growth kind of setup that a goal.
So here's the thing. So see, if your goal is to buy that machine, then when you buy it, your story measure is like now there is no other aspiration. But if you're growth minded, you're saying, why do I even want to buy a machine? I want to be able to serve people, maybe people who are going to church or doing something. So when you're thinking growth, you think why? And you think, what is the bigger overarching glory of God with regards to the journey that I'm taking? Another thing that I want you to realize about growth is that growth is a journey. Goal is a destination. So many times when we have a destination mindset, tukifikia hiyo destination tuna stop. Ndio maana kuna watu walikuwa wanaenda chuo, ile time walipata degree, hawajaifanya anything else to add on their education.
Ndakatoa kupata degree.
Because walisema tu manze nikipata hii karatasi ni hivyo. Yes, kwetu hakuna degree, mimi ndio peseta and all that. Yes, but you see, if it's a growth mindset that I want to be a continuous learner for the rest of my life, I want to be a continuous consumer of knowledge and wisdom for the rest of my life, then you will find that your life will continue becoming better, because growth is a lifelong journey. And that's why this is so important. And by the way, there's something I've realized. For you to have this growth mindset, kuna vitu nne lazima ukuwe nazo, and perhaps it's what I'm just trying going to try to quickly mention them so that we can inculcate them in our lives. Number one, when you have a growth mindset, you have a lifelong humility. A lifelong desire to realize that there is room for you to become better, no matter how good you are. Kuna mtu aliwaisema, the largest room in the world is the room for improvement. So take this for example, Mankaris, useme, I will improve my life by 1% every day. Do you know by the time you are done with 365 days, you'll have done so many small things that add to the quality of the person you are, that you will actually find yourself surpassing your goals, right? I'll give you a very practical example. Many years ago, I sikuwa napenda kusoma. So I just decided every day I'll start by reading half a page of a book. And I just decided I'm going to make that consistent. Why am I doing that? I want to grow in understanding the world, in understanding God, in understanding life. So that humility to start small and say, I want to grow, but I'm going to be willing to start small. I began to read half a page. I continue to 1 page. Nowadays, I find that sometimes in 2 days, I can read a whole book. Because of growth. And even reading 2 books in a week, I can surpass that, because it is a lifelong journey of growing. So you need humility to actually realize that life is a lifelong journey of growth. And a lot of people, the reason why people stop growing and they stop advancing forward in life is because they allow their pride to set their ceiling. Najua, nani anaweza niambia, what else is there to learn? I've bought this, I've bought that, I've achieved that. So when you are humble, you are not the word is not content. You don't become complacent because of an achievement. You look at that achievement as a staircase to the next level of growth.
So you're in a constant place of bado sijafika.
Unajua ile place Paul alikuwa, alisema, Philippians chapter 3, I count myself not to have apprehended. By the time Paul anasema hii kitu, zile vitu alikuwa achieve, most preachers, even if they were given 10 lifetimes, they would not achieve it. So this guy realized, if I settle, if I don't continue growing, then I will set a ceiling on how far I can go in life. And again, that's why we see Jesus, the Bible telling us, he grew in wisdom. So you don't achieve wisdom, you continually grow. In fact, the day you think you've achieved wisdom, umefika mwisho. You've started the journey to foolishness, because the journey of wisdom is a lifelong growth. The second thing that is important in this journey of growth is that you must take responsibility. Naonaga every once in a while ukipost, when you're in the gym and what have you, lifting weights and doing all those kinds of things. Can you imagine? There are people who have never taken responsibility to build their muscles. They are always admiring somebody else's muscle. There has to be that day when you stop and you say, my life is my responsibility. And responsibility means you pick an area and you own your journey of growth in that area. For example, maybe you've not been having good relationships. One of the reasons why people don't have good relationships is because they're not good listeners. You pick that area and you decide, I will get into the gym of growing in this area. I will read books that have something to say about listening well. I will listen to podcasts. I will read scriptures. In other words, I will take full responsibility to develop a muscle in that area. There is nobody who can go to the gym for you. wewe lazima uingie kwa hiyo gym, lazima usikie hiyo pain, and I'm sure when you're lifting those weights kuna ka pain fulani unasikiaga, because growth cannot be separated from pain.
Like I can never remember a day yenye sina
kuna maumivu tu daily, yeah?
Like ni part of my life.
Yes. And by the way, that's the thing about growth. Real growth is painful, and the reason why a lot of people don't become better and their start is faulty is because they are looking for pleasure. They are not looking for purpose. And the one thing that helps you to embrace the pain of growth is that there is a purpose driving you. Why do I want my relationships to become better? Because when my relationship becomes better, it will open up more opportunities in my life. It will glorify God, because God says, live at peace with all men. So there is that aspect of humility. There is an aspect of responsibility. A lot of people, in fact, I read a research, it's attributed to Harvard, wanasema the reason why most people don't go far in life is because they've never taken full responsibility for their lives. Look at, for example, what is happening in our country now. It is very easy to blame the government for where you are as an individual. But do you know what? Even if we had the best government, there are people whose lives may never go forward, because your life going forward begins with humility and then responsibility. Getting to that place where you say, if there are mistakes you've made, own them up. If there are things you need to do, own them up. I was telling somebody, I think the day before yesterday, one of the things that made God kick man out of Eden is irresponsibility. When man alipatikana, he had eaten the fruit that God had told him not to eat, and he said, it is the woman that you gave me. God said, now you had eaten the fruit, you've done something worse than eating the fruit. You've not taken responsibility. So responsibility is a huge part of a good start. In fact, any start that is not rooted in responsibility is a false start. You must own your journey. The number 3, which again is an important aspect, it is the aspect of courage. There will never be a great start without great courage. Ukiangalia saa zile Moses alidai, God alikuja kwa jamaa anaitwa Joshua, kamwambia, Moses my servant is dead, now arise. And the instruction was, Joshua chapter 1 verse 8, be strong and courageous. In other words, confront your fears. You can never start well if you are allowing your fears to be louder than your passion to be a courageous Christian. One of the things I realize in life, Mankaris, is your greatest improvements and growth in life will demand the greatest courage from you. Sometimes the courage to just say, I need help. Sometimes the courage to just say, I need somebody to walk with me. Sometimes the courage to just get up again after you've tried something and it has not worked. Because many times, watu try kitu, na kama ijawak, wana settle. I remember when I was starting earlier in my public speaking career, I was once invited somewhere and I was humiliated because I forgot like half of what I wanted to say. And then ilikuwa zile siku kulikuwa na some of these technologies were beginning to come up, and technology ndio hiyo imekataa kuwork. Your mind cannot remember. You see, you can sentence yourself to mediocrity because of the humiliation of that moment. But you need courage to stand up and say, hey, I missed it this time. I'm going to stand up and try again. There are levels of courage you need. You need courage to start small, because sometimes we lack the courage to start because we think we need to start big. Number 2, you need courage to accept that you will not get everything perfect. There are times you will miss it. There are times you will do it well. So the courage to accept your imperfection, but even as you accept your imperfection, the courage to keep taking small steps, one day at a time. One of the things that I like is just observing kids when they're learning to walk. Recently, when my daughter was small, I was just observing how she was trying to walk. And this kid alikuwa anasimama, anatembea steps mbili, anaanguka. But then she never allowed the fall to be greater than her desire to walk. You see what we're talking about? Growth. She knew that within me, if I can grow enough, I can actually walk on my 2 feet. So I noticed something also, that when alikuwa anaanguka na tunapiga nduru, oh ameanguka, is when she would cry. But if she fell down and then tuende tumwambie, yeah, you can actually walk, continue trying, unamfanyisha steps mbili. It built the courage, and she continued until now. She can not only walk, she can run. So the courage to run begins with the courage to be willing to fall as you're learning to walk. So kuna watu pengine unaweza kuanzisha biashara haikuwork. Go back there and have the courage to start again. And courage does not mean that you will not feel fear, you will not feel anxiety. Courage means that even when I feel fear knocking on the door, I allow faith to answer that knock. So it begins with humility, to take growth as the journey. Then you come to responsibility. You own your journey. Don't wait for anybody to do your growing for you. Your growing is your responsibility.
There are things that must be done by you.
There are things,
and you,
and even God cannot do some things for you. Right? I like what somebody said. Somebody said God gives all the birds food. Matthew chapter 5 inatuambia hivyo, right? That hata the birds of the air wanapongwa food. But somebody said God does not drop the food in the nest of the bird. The bird has got to wake up and take some responsibility. Iende ifly yuko juu, ione ka warm, iende yume yako ka warm. So there has to be a sense of responsibility. And one of the things that makes me very sad is when I see the way many times Christianity is equated to irresponsibility. It is equated to God will do this for me. As opposed to getting to a place of maturity where we say, instead of saying God will do this for me, we need to ask, what is God asking me to do?
Anasemanga,
yes,
faith,
yes,
imekuwa synonym ya laziness.
Ndio hiyo sasa. Unapata mse anasema hana food, anataka asaidiwe, but you cannot see any initiative on their part. And when we reduce Christianity to that, then we make a mockery of the faith. Because God is most glorified when we become sons who take responsibility, not children who just wait for miracles. Am I saying miracles are bad? No. And by the way, interestingly, that's on Apatanga, in especially third world countries, a lot of people, if you call for a financial miracle service, they will come. But if you call for a service to teach them on financial discipline, they will not come. Kwa sababu ya nini? Irresponsible people look for a quick fix that will excuse them of the pain of growth. But when you begin to become a son, sonship is responsibility. You say, what is God asking me to do? You are praying for God to heal your relationships. What responsibility is God asking you to do? Maybe God is telling you to tame your tongue, right? Anakwambia kuongea mingi ndio inaharibu relationships. Or God is asking you to learn to use kinder language, right? If you're praying for a financial miracle, maybe God is asking you to actually sit down and think of something you can do to earn. Not waiting for some angel to deposit money in your bank. That's an irresponsible faith. So one of the things that I've realized is we grow the most when we embrace responsibility. And when we fail to embrace responsibility, we miss out on so many things that God wanted to bring in our lives.
Wow. And vile unasema hivyo Bonena na nikumbusha pia unakutanga huko kwa the same pattern.
Absolutely. Yes.
Unasema nifanyie. Then unataka mtu anakufanyia.
Yes.
Then after a while nifanyie tena. And mimi hata vile unasema Bonena naona ni kama pia kuna vitu zingine shetani tuambia kwa maakili zetu na kwa mind zetu ametufanya tuna feel ni kama tuko chini,
helpless.
And I think what you're telling us is that we have the ability to rise past that place.
We have it.
Actually God wants us to rise past that stage.
Absolutely.
Kuna kitu umesema ya goal setting na growth setting like when you're growth oriented. And Boni ninaonanga pia kuna watu hata akifanya kitu mzuri ama hata improve mali au nangi kama ameimprove kwa sababu yeye ufikiria goal. I think pia ukitupeleka kwa hii place ya growth setting pia unatupeleka place ya ku appreciate the small victories,
the small steps, the small journeys. And interestingly, I don't know whether you've ever realized, and I'm glad because I'm talking to a parent, you have a child. Have you ever set goals of how tall your son needs to be? No. You just feed him, and what he feeds on contributes to his growth. In other words, if he feeds well and he's not sick, the natural consequence of good feeding is what? Is growth, right? And that's why Bible inatuambia katika Matthew 4, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. One of the things that makes us to grow is to listen to the right words, listen to God's word, listen to right voices, listen to things that build us up and not things that take us down. And interestingly, mtoi anazaliwangwa, in fact mtoi akizaliwa anakuwaga like maybe 3 kgs or whatever kgs, but by the time a child is becoming an adult, they are like 70, 80 kgs, some even 200 kgs. How did that growth happen? It did not happen necessarily by setting goals. It happened by daily simple things that are done consistently, and they create a result effortlessly. Yeah. So, and that's why I'm telling people, we need to move from this goal mindset to a growth mindset. What are some of the things that I need to do that can contribute to my growth? There are people who don't grow because they are surrounded by wrong associations, right? Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. If you surround yourself with sharp people, it will grow your sharpness. You will not even need to force your sharpness. It will naturally become, a result of what you're consuming. So and this is the biggest part of growth. Responsibility.
Oh.
Unaona kama mtoi unaweza mpea food, lakini ukimpea hiyo food achiu and then ateme, hata grow. So you can even chew for them, but you cannot swallow for them. So this is why we are saying there is a place of responsibility that has been lost in Christianity. That's why we keep going around in circles, wondering why we are not making progress, telling God, God, do this for us. Where will we ever get to the place of asking God, God, what do you want us to do? As opposed
we say it has become transactional.
Not relational.
Prayer is transactional.
Absolutely.
And there is nothing wrong with asking.
Yes.
It says ask and you shall get. But there is so many things that comes before the asking.
Yes.
And I think you're unatupeleka hapo kabisa. Responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yesterday I was sharing about even abiding,
Absolutely. And that's a responsibility.
Abide in me, and I abide, then whatever you shall ask. Tunakimbia hapo sana. And I think Boniki Kenya umefanya this afternoon, na nashukuru Mungu pia amekuleta hapa. Umetutoa kwa place ya kuangalia promises za Mungu.
Yes.
Na the fact that zo zitakam true, zitatimia kama reason ya kukaa. Kukaa na kulala. Unajua kuna watu wanaomba God send an angel. Sangine huyo angel anatumwa, si angel wa kukupatia hiyo do. Ni angel wa kukuambia twende kazi. Amka twende mjengo. Wewe na wewe umekwanga ukiangalia angel mwenye mimi nataka Mungu atume ni angel atakuja na check. Miraculously yapate burden yangu. Na hata huyo mwenye amekukuja kwa hapa kukwambia ni aje, kuna job imetokea hivi si twende. Hata yeye ni burden God ameweka kwa hati yake. Ni angel concerning you. So mimi naona God anataka anataka kutupatia bread yenye itakuwa inakuja. Si moja alafu unabaki ukiremember unakumbuka tu taste ya bread. Alafu unapata nyingine tena ile nyingine.
Anataka ujue kupika hiyo bread.
Anataka ujue kubake, because then you are assured that anytime I need bread, najua hii mixer na ina.
Yes.
And that I think is what I can call as divine provision.
Absolutely.
Yenye tunaitanga tukifikiria ni msee atakutumia kitu. Ukiguzwa kutumia mtu, lakini hakuna mtu atakutumia kila mwezi. Hata your Fox atakuuliza unaenda aje. Asante Boni.
Thank you so much.
Na napenda saa ingine utupembelezi, unatuambia vile iko.
Reality check.
20 minutes worth of our time. Baraka.
Thank you so much.
We get to see how this goes again next Thursday.
Asante
I think tumemaliza hii, so maybe tutakuja na another, tutatoa another release.
Ndio hiyo.
Hopefully. And thank you. I know it's a sacrifice. Mwalimu wetu wa kwaya anasemanga kukuja kwaya sio ibada. Wewe kutoka